You have tuned in to Be the Voice podcast, where we are using our voices to shatter the silence by promoting healing from past trauma, aiming for victorious living, and uplifting the work to improve our communities. It's time to be informed, encouraged, and empowered with your favorite host, Dee Marie. Well, good evening and welcome to Be the Voice podcast. This is your host, Dee Marie, and today is just an amazing, amazing special day. So today's podcast is the first time we have ever had a live studio audience. Welcome, you guys. Yeah. Woo. So exciting. This is so exciting. So we were actually live, not like it says we're live, but we're live. We're live. And but before we even get started, I want you to know that Be the Voice podcast is actually brought to you by Voices Magazine. And Voices Magazine is an online magazine that is tailored to the voices of sexual abuse survivors. So inside the magazine, you will find a survivor as a featured story. There is healthy living. We actually spotlight organizations that are doing the work in the community. And we have fashion and beauty and tips and safety. So even if you're not a survivor and you feel like, you know what, I don't want to read the magazine, it is for everybody. You will be informed, encouraged, and empowered. And if you're interested in what we're doing, you can go to the website, which is VosasMagazine.com, and it's VOSASmagazine.com. Well, let's get started. So if you didn't know, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And this month we celebrate survivors. So we don't necessarily glorify what happened, but we do celebrate those that have overcome and they're now living their lives in victory. So no matter what you have been through in your past, today is a day to celebrate that you have overcome. So I have an amazing panel here today. I'm so excited to have them here with me. Thank you all for being here. Yes. And I want to go ahead and introduce first. Now you all know my co-host. You know my co-host, my sister, LaTanya Buford. You go ahead and say whatever you want to.
Good evening and welcome. We're so excited about this and having people in the audience. It's a little nerve-wracking. We appreciate everybody coming. For you tuning in, I'm not going to repeat the story because we've heard it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But
sometimes you have to go.
Yeah. But everybody knows me, so I'm going to move out the way and let the next person have it.
Melissa.
Hi, my name is Melissa Webb. I'm a licensed professional counselor, licensed in Missouri and Georgia. Still have my private practice, but I also work for someone right now. I also am a survivor. I've been raped twice, and I am doing well and in charge of my own life right now.
Amen. So my name is Sarah White. I am the founder and executive director of Fresh Beginnings Safe House. It is part of the anti-human trafficking movement. So I founded it to work with adult women who have been trafficked or commercially sexually exploited. I am a survivor of commercial sexual exploitation when I was a teenager. We are doing work here in St. Louis to assist the women who are being victimized by commercial sexual exploitation, which falls under human trafficking, as well as human trafficking itself. We do outreach program, we do crisis intervention, immediate crisis intervention. If they call me, I do get up in the middle of the night and go get women, if they need assistance. So we do a multiple of things. I wear many different hats in the community, but that is an important one that I wear.
This time.
That's
good. Yeah. And so as you can see, it was so important to have these ladies here today. It's so interesting because most of you all, if you follow me, then you know our story, me and my sister, about us surviving childhood sexual abuse from the ages of 3 and 4. And so no matter how much you talk about it, it's never easy to do, because even though I'm up here and I've said this so many times, it's like, oh, I got to tell this story again. It's never something that you just, now I'm just going to tell everybody. Healing is day to day. It's ongoing, it's constant. And even though we're here, it's just not easy to always have this conversation, which I'm sure any of you can attest to.
I think it's important to remember that there's really, in our healing journey, and that's with anything, whether it be sexual trauma, domestic violence, whatever you have been through that has been a crisis or a trauma in your life. So you're on this journey after it occurs, and then when you decide to get to that space where, okay, I'm going to heal. So healing is a journey, and I always tell every individual that I encounter that is on their healing journey, there is no place called there. You're never going to get
That's
to an
good.
end point in your journey. It just evolves as you go. And every season that you hit, there's going to be different components of your journey. There's all these different moving pieces. So you just embrace that journey and you keep on healing and you keep on overcoming and you get to this place of thriving, but there's still healing even in that, because during our healing journey, there are still things that occur that can add extra added pain. And there are things that there are roads that we take, and it's just never ending. So there's no place called there. It's just life.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
good, good, good.
Also, I was going to say, and I kind of piggyback off what you said, is that we have to choose healing every day.
Yeah.
Healing is a choice. I could choose not to and choose to stay in the bed when I get up because I might feel that way. But I have to consciously choose to heal every day.
Every
Some
day,
part of
yeah.
trauma, because like you said, it's never a there. It's something we have to heal from. And then sometimes life happens and piles upon trauma you're already having to deal with. So we have to wake up in the morning and as an affirmation almost to say, I choose to heal today.
Yeah.
I choose
Yeah.
to continue this journey today.
Yes. And that's good because one thing I know is, everyone's like, and I was just having this conversation with somebody and they said, Dee, you're always happy. No, I might seem happy, but I have days where I'm not feeling my best. But I choose to be happy. I choose to live my life at peace because I know where I have come from and I know where I'm going. I know there's so many people, even with my, because I did not want to be the voice of sexual abuse. That's not what I want to do. I want to make people laugh, no one's laughing at that. I want to be joyous all the time, but I do know that God has given me this platform to help others because if they can see that we can sit on this stage right here and tell our story. And even though there are times we don't want to, but we know this can help someone else, then the people that are watching, that you can heal as well. And it's not always easy. It's not. And I know, Melissa, like I said, you are a counselor. And I'm sure, what are some things that you would say to people? So when me and my sister first came out about our story, the first question they asked us, what was the number one question?
Why?
Why did you wait? Why did it take you so long to tell?
I hate that question. Because it puts shame back on the person. It puts shame on the person that was the victim.
Right.
It's like, why did you not do this? Why? It's like, because I had trauma, I was scared, I didn't know what was gonna happen, all of that. So when I do have people in my office who are survivors, I'm like, I'm not gonna ask you why, because that's a stupid question.
Right.
They say no question is stupid. No, that's a stupid question.
There are definitely stupid
There are
questions.
stupid questions. Whoever said it wasn't, they lied. Okay? So that's a stupid question. And with people in my office, I just say, hey, let's just talk. Let's process through. I'm here with you. I'm here with you on this journey, right?
Yeah.
And I just work with them to process through the trauma and help them to heal.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. And I always feel like healing it's not linear. It's this,
Yes.
we go
Oh my
back,
God.
it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And just let them know what it's gonna look like. I think then people are like, okay, I'm not crazy. I didn't do anything wrong. I actually was dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And just normalizing that. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. We have to normalize healing doesn't look like a straight line. Healing looks like literally all over the place.
And that's true because I actually I have a journal when I first told my story about being sexually abused, and I look at it and it is all over the place. One day I was like, good. The next day I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Why am I even doing this? And then the next minute it's like, oh, I'm helping everybody. And it's like, I don't even want to do this anymore. I have quit this so many times, because I'm like, who wants to keep hearing this story over and over and over? But I do remember early on when we were doing the walks and everything, there was a time where I said, you know what, God, I understand that this needs to be done, but I don't want to do this anymore. And clear as day, it was like he showed me all these women. They were just staring at me, and they said to me, "What about us?"
Okay.
And I said, "Okay." I said, "God, I hear you, because this is not even about me.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
You know,
right.
yes, it's my story, but my story is for other people, and not just women, but for men too. I wanted to have men on this stage, but it is so hard to get men to talk about past, especially when it talks about sexual abuse.
Yes.
You know, because now they have so many questions about, you know, things, maybe even their sexuality, just, you know, a lot of stuff that they deal with because of it. Go
I
ahead,
wanted
sorry.
to go back to something that you said, and you said earlier why people always say to you, why do you always have a smile on your face? And I want to stay there because the thing is, we are trained to have a mask.
See.
We are
That's
trained
good,
from
that's good.
childhood that we're supposed to have a mask. And so when I go out into the community, what I've been trained to do is cover up my trauma, not heal from it, cover up from it. So that's why I always have a smile. That's why I always am cordial or have a joke, and I may not feel like joking inside, but I'm covering up. So that's why this is beneficial and necessary.
Yeah.
Because as the shirt say, we breaking the silence.
Shatter the
Because
silence, yeah.
things are becoming exposed and
Yeah.
we can no longer hide. And so now we have to deal with the trauma that we've hidden for so long. So now it is necessary
Yeah.
that we don't no longer, that transparency is important.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's necessary that transparency is important because we have to break the silence, because otherwise, if we don't, if you don't, nobody heals.
Yeah.
Because everybody's always covering up.
Yes.
So that's
yes,
why this is necessary, it's good, it's beneficial.
Yes.
Because you never know who you're reaching or touching.
Yeah.
You know, when you become transparent, that's why people need to see your ups, your downs, your good times, bad times, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Think I say that a lot. People need to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Because it's all a
you.
part of healing. Yeah, all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if
yeah.
somebody can see that in me, that means they know it's okay for them to do the same.
Yes, yes. I want to break some myths about sexual abuse.
Okay.
One myth I want to break is that, like, now we saw the Me Too movement, you know, women were coming out and men too coming out about this, and everyone said, are they really telling the truth? Well, I want to break some of that.
Yeah.
Out of, if you have 100 people on this stage, 2 to 4 of them are lying. 96 to 98% are telling the truth. So if you want to question if someone is telling, if they say I have been sexually abused and you want to question it, you want to think about that statistic. No one just makes up a story and say I have somebody raped me, I've been sexually abused. No one wants to do that. I mean, no one wants that to happen to them. You know, so why would I make up this story? And then also the victim blaming, because unfortunately, you know, Tanya and I, we were 3 and 4. We had no words to say that we were sexually abused. We didn't have the language. So for someone like us to say we waited until we were in our 30s before we said anything, we just went on with life and just kind of just, you know, normalized it happened and just moved on. So when someone does come out, sometimes you don't even have to say anything. They just really want to, you know, talk about it or find someone safe that they can have this conversation. We didn't even talk to each other at all until in our 30s. You know, we understood what happened. We didn't say a word until we were in our 30s. But a lot of times for survivors, if you're watching, if you're listening, you blame yourself. And I want you to know it is not your fault.
Right.
It was not your fault. Someone did this to you and they were sick. You know, why does this happen? I don't have the answer for that. You know, a lot of times people question God. God, why would you allow this to happen? You know, unfortunately, we live in this world and bad things happen to good people.
That's right.
And, but it's not your fault. You know, I want to dispel that myth. And then also, you know, and you guys can chime in too, but I'm just thinking about some things that, you know, kind of irritated me throughout the years when I was going through this. And if it's a parent, and I want to talk about that, if someone was abused by their parents, then people say, well, why are they still by their parent? Because they love their parent. Their parent, unfortunately, is a pedophile.
That's good.
But they love their mother, they love their father, but their father or mother is someone who's abusing them. They don't want the abuse, but they want their parent. So they still love their parent, you know, because they raised them. They just don't want things to happen to them that is happening. So we got to dispel that. Go ahead.
A question that I got when we first started telling the story, and I know I told mine a little bit before you, was what did you do to cause that. Somebody asked me, what did you do? And I was like, well, I was 4 years old, so what could I have possibly done to entice somebody to do this to me?
Exactly.
But then I had to realize, first of all, they did not understand what they said. And then I have to realize that kind of was an eye-opener for me to know that now I blame me. Even though I was that young, I took on some of the responsibility
Wow.
because of the shame of what happened. And that's what happens at any age when trauma like that happens, or any trauma really, you take on part of responsibility, even if it's not your fault. So it's easy to hide behind a wall so that you won't have to tell, because now I feel accountable for what happens to me. So I have to deal with my accountability when you get to a point where you know I'm not accountable.
Right.
It's not my fault. And then you can release the shame of it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you're trying to make sense of it. And
Yeah.
I think part of that, the self-blame comes through, I'm trying to make sense of this, of why this happened. So we, as human beings, we have this innate nature to want to put it into a context or put it into, through some kind of lens
Yeah.
as to why has this happened. And I think, you know, we're kind of shifting the narrative as we continue to move forward. We continue to do these kind of things, and we continue to build these nonprofits and talk about, you know, the trauma-informed care that needs to happen, because I deal with adult women. And so the question oftentimes it is, well, why don't they just leave? How come they're just, you know, because we've been working with women, you know, we do most of our outreach down in like Martin Luther King, Holdemont area, West Side, those areas, and a significant amounts of the population that we serve are African American women. And so I get all the time, I'm like, you know, they're like, well, why don't you just call the police? So many people don't understand the systemic issues
Come
of,
on.
Okay.
of what we're involved in.
Yeah.
They don't understand the generational bondage that has happened. We have a mom and a daughter out there, and both of them are adults. But mom was with the dad who was the pimp, and then they had daughter, and then she got pulled into it. And so there have been layers and generations of these women who have been commercially sexually exploited. And there's so many factors to this. It's not an easy answer.
Right.
It's not an easy response. And
Yeah.
it drives me crazy when because that's not a trauma-informed question to ask, why are they here? No, what has happened to them to cause them to be vulnerable enough to where individuals, or why don't we re-ask the question, why are people doing this to them
Right.
instead of assisting them?
Yeah.
Why is society looking at them the way they are? Why are all these systemic things put into place that are oppressing them, that are causing them to be vulnerable? I mean, there's so many other questions we could ask other than why don't they just stop, or why don't they just leave?
Right. That's good. That's good. And I hear that a lot too. And I asked Sarah to come here because I don't know a lot about sex trafficking, but I do know St. Louis is a hub for some sex trafficking.
Wow.
Can you talk about that too?
So it is, and we're in the top 20 of the top major cities for sex trafficking, human trafficking in the United States. Sex trafficking is extremely prevalent in St. Louis. It is extremely prevalent in the Black community. Black women are disproportionately victimized. You know, and there, again, we can go into layers of systemic reasons as to why our Black women are being targeted. I chose to go with adult women because there are organizations that are already dealing with children.
Yeah.
But when I see a Black woman, there's a little girl in her that has never been loved, never been held, never been touched by, you know, someone who says, I care about you. And then we have all these systemic issues within the Black community that are contributing to this. You know, I mean, we're not dealing with mental health. We're not, I mean, there are so many layers that have been put into place generations before any of us ever existed that has created this space in St. Louis. We're still very segregated. We socioeconomically, racially, culturally, all of that. We're still separated. You know, Black women tend to be very vulnerable because they're criminalized versus saying, you know, why are you out here? How can we help you? no, we're gonna pick you up for charges on drugs or charges on prostitution. Whereas if I was out there walking down Martin Luther King, the police will write up and say, are you okay? They're not going to ask the dark-skinned woman, is she okay? Now, if you're out here at half clad, you're half naked, you're out here, you look high, you're a nuisance, you're a problem. And that is the issue that we have, why are we not going into these communities and saying, how can we assist you? What has happened to you to get you to this place? How can we create more mental health awareness? How can we create more services? How can we create more resources? These are underserved communities.
Yeah.
So now we have all these vulnerabilities where poverty is and lack of resources and the communities are underserved. So now, a lot of the men that we see down there come from communities that are nowhere near Martin Luther King and Holden.
Wow.
They're in Benzes coming from West County. We saw during COVID, during COVID, there was a lot less men that were coming down there. They were still out there, but these men couldn't come down there. My daughter and I, who was my outreach partner, we noticed, we're like, look at the change in the demographic of Johns. I said, because they have no excuse to give their wife out in West County that I'm going to go hang out with fellas, I'm going to go play golf or anything like that. And they're down here, I'm Martin Luther King buying this black woman,
Wow.
And so, but this is the issue, and so we chose, my heart is for my sisters. And I mean, we service everyone, I've helped women that look like me, I've helped women of other cultures, but predominantly we work with African-American women because it's a huge issue in the community.
I want to pause on something that you said that struck me. You said that even though they're adults, they're still a child. And what it is trauma, and you can piggyback because I'm not a counselor. But that trauma, when it happens, you're stuck in that place. One thing that caught me was when we came out and we told our cousin, and she told us we had to tell our mom. We told her no. She said, well, why are you still acting like you're 3 and 4? Because the trauma is in that place.
And at that moment, we were 3 and 4. It was, and when she said that, honestly, for me, I don't know how you felt. I was thinking like, it was like a light bulb. Like, I am 3 years old right now.
I realized that once I exposed my trauma or came out, my personality changed to a degree. And it's because I allowed the little girl that was stuck in that trauma to grow up. I released her and allowed her to start becoming the adult that I already thought I was. But part of me was still stuck in that place that happened. So we have to realize that when we come at people with that question, for one thing, it's a lack of education because of the questions. And another thing, when people are in trauma, whatever that happened, they're stuck in that age. And until they expose, become transparent, talk about it, and set it free, that child on the inside of them is not allowed to grow up.
Yeah, it's like a security blanket, like
Absolutely.
Linus on
Charlie Brown.
Well, Kira and I did the example all the time where you tie yourself to the person, and wherever you go, the person, the little girl or whatever that trauma is right with you. And you're just dragging it everywhere you go until you get to a point where you release it, which I'm sure, Melissa, you can attest to.
Yeah, it's actually called something in therapy, but I forgot the actual name of it. But when I work with clients who are stuck, so to speak, and that little girl or little boy, they need something. So I'm always like, what do they need? It's always like love, caring, a hug. Just to say I love you, real simple stuff that sounds simple, but that little girl or boy just did not get that. And as soon as they get that, tears, just like you can see like literally the healing happening as they like literally mentally go through their head and like give this person, their little person, a hug. And I'm always like, you're their protector. Right? Like you have to protect this little girl, but that little girl didn't have anybody. Right? And they're like, okay, I got it. So I'm like, how can you protect them? So it's just a whole process that I kind of go through with clients. And then by the end, they're like, oh yeah, she cool, she thriving, we could, we out here, we get ice cream, pizza party, whatever. I'm like, okay, y'all kicking it, cool, but it's amazing just to see the transformation from, oh my God, this little girl's scared to, oh my God, we are here at Pizza Pizza, so yeah, when you said it, I mean, it's like, yes, that's very true. And what you said, yes, also, and then to add to that, yes.
Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, what's interesting, if we flip that around, so like the women that we work with, we have to remember that predators also prey upon that little girl.
Yeah.
So they're still preying upon that little girl. So when people say, well, why don't they just leave? Because there's still that little girl inside of them that needs to be loved. And so they're wanting, so you have these predators, these Johns and these boyfriend pimps and these, because human trafficking oftentimes, and I often ask this question in a room when I'm doing a training, what do you think of when you think of human trafficking? And a lot of them are like chains and handcuffs and kidnapping. That is the very, very small percentage of what human trafficking looks like. Does it occur? Yes. So we don't want to minimize the fact that there is such thing as people getting snatched. However, the majority of human trafficking, the majority of sex trafficking is not someone snatching you out of your car and tying you up somewhere. There is a grooming process.
Yes.
There is a manipulation process. And so when you have women that are in these vulnerable spaces, you grew up in poverty, you've never had anything, you never got the mental health care that you needed, you have been through trauma, you grew up in, let's just say, and I'm just throwing things out there, you grew up in a domestic violence situation, watching your mother, you have all this trauma. And so when that man comes along with the nice car and the sweet talk and everything else, and he tells you, oh, baby, you fine, or like these young girls, are you real mature for your age? And because that's how I got started, because I was a constant runaway. And that's how it often starts, is survival sex. Okay, I'm out here on these streets, I gotta eat somehow, and so a man comes along, baby, you real mature for your age, oh, you so pretty, here, come on. And they're not going to victimize you right away.
Right.
It's just like a domestic violence situation. Usually they're going to groom you for a while, and they're going to wind. Boyfriend pimps, especially with young women, is so prevalent because they come in and they make you think they love you, and then later on down the line you're in a hotel room and you have no choice. Oh, my boys are coming over, and now you're getting sold, and then a lot of times what they'll do is they get them strung out on drugs. So most of our women that we serve are on heroin or crack or some other, and now meth, because meth really wasn't in the Black community for a while. Now that has hit the Black community.
Wow.
We have seen that more and more with the women that we are serving that are still in the streets, and most of the women that I work with are still very active in the life. Some of them have called me, I've gotten some of them out, but it takes years sometimes to get these women out, and just to get them to a place where they even believe that they deserve to get out, number one, and number two, to be brave enough. It takes courage to leave those kind of situations, because at the end of the day, your dysfunction becomes functional to you, and that is your norm.
Yeah.
This right here, our norm, is not their norm, and that's what I try to tell people too. And they're like, "Why don't they just leave?" Because what's on the other side of that, they have no idea. They don't know how to function in a society that has expectations. I was telling you, we grew up in poverty, so I've always known how to be broke. I'm gonna hustle. I know how to be broke. I know how to eat. I know how to get my bills paid. I know how to be broke. But I was going to therapy, and I say this because it kind of ties in. So started therapy a while back, and I got to this place, and I walked into my therapist's office, and I said, you know what? I don't know if I know how to be the woman that I have worked so hard to become.
Whoa.
And that was me years and years and years out of this, after having an organization, after getting my master's in crisis and trauma counseling, after doing all this. So imagine if I'm in a space where I'm like, I don't even know who I am right now. So you have these women in the midst of all that and the trauma and everything else. They don't know who they are or where they want to go or what. They may not like their situation, but they know how to do what they're doing.
You get comfortable. And that's the problem. We get comfortable in trauma because we know how to navigate in the trauma space.
So even when you heal, healing, it takes courage to heal. Like you said, it takes courage to get out. It takes courage to heal. And when you are healing, you got to unlearn and relearn. So now all that trauma and the things that you were doing because you were living in survival mode or trying to forget things or using alcohol, whatever you were doing, now you got to learn how to live a healthy life. And sometimes that looks scary because you don't know how to do that. I did want to go back to something you said about grooming, because I want to talk about that as far as childhood sexual abuse, because grooming is something that predators will use. Now, they'll do things like, and that's why as parents, we really have to pay attention. Because you know how they say, don't let a child sit on somebody's lap or whatever. So what happens is, and this is just an example, there's a predator that is interested in a child. The parent will be in the room, everybody will be in the room. The predator will pick the child up, put on the lap, and will do some inappropriate things in front of the parent. The parent not knowing, but the child will think it's okay because no one said don't do that.
Jesus.
Yeah, but they're doing that because it's a way to, they'll tickle them or inappropriately, like kind of slick like, but no one will know. But and the child thinks, oh, I guess it's okay because mom didn't say don't do that. And then they'll continue to do things like that. You know, let me go buy you some ice cream. You know, just little things like, I'm not saying everybody is, you know, but that is kind of the things that they do to groom the child, you know, and then the child comes up and says something, but the parent is not seeing what is happening. You know, that's why please believe your children.
Listen to your kids.
Yes,
Because
please.
with my granddaughter, she's 9 years old. And she's allowed to tell you no, she doesn't want to hug you. I don't care if you're family or not.
Okay. Right.
She's allowed to say, I'm not comfortable going to their house. And we listen to her, you know, and so we have always had this, you know, I mean, the baby boomers were horrible about it, you know, even Gen Xers, we were bad, you know, it's like, no, that's your family, go, you know, go hug her, or, you know, and even other older kids. Because everybody doesn't raise their kids the same way. And you have to, because I was molested the first time I was 7 years old and he was 9, no, he was 10. And we were friends and we played together all the time. His parents were always gone. They let him stay at home by himself. My mama didn't think anything of it. My mother was a baby boomer. You know what I mean? All your kids stayed outside till the street lights came on. You know, you didn't care what the cell phones. As long as you came home alive, that's all that matters. She didn't pay attention to what was, and there was things going on that were terrifying to me. You know, he held a knife to me. He cornered me in a bathroom, you know. And so in this generation, I appreciate millennials and Gen Zs for this. You know, they may eat Tide Pods, they may act up sometimes, they may get on their nerves, you know, they may not be able to hold a job.
That's so good.
But no, the millennials have brought some things to the table.
Yes.
And that is being more open to mental health and trauma informed and having a voice.
Yes.
You're not gonna tell me that, you know, and my daughter has to catch me sometimes, you know, because I'm like, she's like, not in this house, Mom. No, she said no. She told, because I remember just recently, my son wanted her to go and do something. He wanted her to go out to the car and get her something or whatever. I don't know. And she got real snitch. She was like, no. And then my son got mad. And I'm like, now, you know, you could have had her go out there and get, and they're not that far apart because my daughter had my grandbaby very young. So my grandbaby my son's only 20 and she's 9. So, you know, they argue like cats and dogs. And I'm like, you could, you know, he's an adult. She was like, but she said no. And I'm like, yeah, but she said no. She didn't want to. Mom, he could have went out and got his own shoe. She said, now if it was something, if he was laying there. She was like, was it necessary? Does he have shoes in this house, Mom? I said, yes. And she goes, were those shoes necessary? Were this with life or death? Is he sick? Is he laying on the ground? Is there anything that he needs right this moment? Is he busy doing anything? No, he just wanted to use my baby to send her out to go get his shoes because he was too lazy to get. She has the right to say no. And you know what? I let it alone. I walked away. I said, okay.
But you're right. The generation that we're in now, they are more open. You know, because we grew up with what goes on in the house. And we need to dispel that. Period. Yes. I know we don't always tell house business, but there's some business that needs to
That
be
needs
told.
to be
Yes,
told.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
It needs to be told.
And as a millennial. I'm still an 80s baby, but as a millennial, it's real. Like I have a son, and I even tell my family like, yo, don't talk about him. If he don't want to come to you, he ain't gonna come. Like it is what it is. My mom's like, I mean, we family. I don't care.
Right.
It's called
right.
personal space. If he don't
Yeah.
want you in his space,
Yeah.
let him be. And he'd be like, my son know how to do that real well, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what you said, like
Respecting.
that's respecting the
Yeah,
space.
that's
And
right.
also I do appreciate my generation for being like, no, we're gonna do things different than our parents.
Yes.
We're gonna go to therapy, we're gonna talk about things, we're gonna put out there, you know, we're gonna be transparent, we're gonna be
Yeah.
vulnerable, we're gonna do all of those things. And so I think we really started it, then the generation under us, like, yeah, we can do that, you know. And so
yeah.
I think we started a trend. I like
Yeah,
saying millennials.
But it's a good trend.
Yeah.
And it was
Yes.
a much needed trend,
Yeah.
you know, and just like all the secrets in households,
Mhm.
we don't do secrets in our house.
No.
You know, there's not, I mean, like, you know, if there's something we need to talk about as
Right.
adults, you know, that's
Yeah.
there's balance to that. But, you know, we don't do, you know, she was like, well, my grandma, so-and-so told me a secret. We don't do secrets.
Yeah.
That's a secret.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we don't do secrets. So she knows. There's no secret. So if someone could, you was to come up and try to whisper, she was like, I can't do secrets.
Yeah.
Because that sets the precedence. You'll
Yep.
never be able to walk up to my grandbaby and try to pull it to the side and have
Exactly.
a private conversation that's
Exactly.
inappropriate because we
Yeah.
don't do
Yeah,
secrets.
and it is important to have these conversations, even with my son and my daughter when they grew up. I always told them, if someone tells you that you can't tell me, I said, then you have to tell me.
Mhm.
I said, because there are no secrets between you all and me. I was like, so if they ever tell you that, that means you must tell me. So, I mean, I pray that they have,
That's good.
and listen to that
Yeah.
and actually come to me and talk to me because I want to have open dialogue. You know, unfortunately, in the African American community, you know, our parenting styles are hard. We are, you know, we grew up that way. Our parents, you know, just really tough and nothing wrong with being, you know, having discipline, but be open enough to
Yeah.
listen to what our kids are saying. You know, a lot of times, because honestly, I mean, if someone came to us and said, were you being abused? I don't know how I would answer that.
Right.
You know, I can't say that I would say yes, I can't say that I would say no, but to have that open dialogue and to know that I can go to someone and tell them, you know, that I was being abused. But unfortunately, that's why too it's important too to talk to your kids at an early age, because some people don't want to tell their kids things because they're too young. We were being abused at 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You know, you don't want to talk to us. It was already happening.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to wait until we're older. No, you need to have that conversation as soon as they understand what you're saying. And be honest about their body parts, you know.
Right.
Yes.
Teach them exactly what it is,
Yes.
you know. Don't give them little nicknames because I think I saw it was a special or something where someone called female vagina a cookie.
I saw that.
And
Mhm.
so the child was like, such and such wanted my cookie.
Mhm.
But the mom thought she was talking about a cookie, which in actuality, she was trying to say they were trying to molest me, you know, whatever. But so stop giving those names like that, but be honest about what it is, you know, and it's not being vulgar, it's just having that honest conversation with your children, you
Even
know.
with that, we had a situation where in an agency I used to work at, and the kid called somebody for a nickname, and the cops didn't know like what to do with that. And so they were like, "What is that?" They're like, you know, by whatever it was, and the cop was like, "Yeah, we don't know what that is." And so like trying to get actual reporting or accurate reporting, you know, that's why it's important to your kids,
Yeah,
like breasts,
right,
vagina, butt, you know,
Yeah.
penis, all of that.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's like, you know, it's his, you know, his little pointer, his little whatever. It's just like, what is that? What is that? You know,
Right,
and
right.
it just won't be accurate in the report won't be
Yeah,
right, you know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's important as well.
Mhm.
and I want to talk about reporting too, I'm glad you mentioned that, I did want to talk about that. Yeah, segue to reporting. We are all mandated reporters.
Mhm.
I mean, I know people say if you work in a certain field that you're a mandated reporter. Technically, we all are, and we just have to have our ears and eyes open. And this is not to scare people into thinking everybody is, but it's just information. Like it's being educated and being informed because there are times that we might miss things, you know. And that's why even like when we told mom, you know, I'm sure she felt like, how did I miss this? you know, it wasn't her fault. It's just that unfortunately we trust family too. And 90% of the time when people are abused, it's by someone that they know. Yes, there are times, you know, on TV you see people out in the bushes and they, you know, reach out and they grab people, but usually it is somebody in their circle of trust. It's not a stranger. So we really have to have conversations and really listen to what they're saying.
It has to be proper education.
Yeah.
You need, what's the thing, I'm dating myself. The Channel 5 used to say, the more you know.
Oh,
It's power in that.
Yeah.
It's power in that saying.
Yeah.
The more you know, now I can't hide behind a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Now it's in my face because I know it, I can see the signs. So we have to educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, it's so much information out there that our kids already get in their hands by just having their phones. So you don't want the world to teach them and the internet to teach them. We want to be the ones to have the conversation, have those proper conversations with them so they know what to look for, because the world will make it look glamorous. And we need them to understand that's not what this is.
Yeah. And then also too, I think the more education you have, it will stop predators. Because then the kid be like, no, like I know what you're doing, you know, mama, or you know, whatever, you know, so they can be educated, and then it can kind of stop some of this. I mean, unfortunately, it's happening. If you want to know some statistics, you know, 1 out of every 3 girls, I think it's 3 or 4, and then 1 out of every 5 boys will be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. And unfortunately, that's just the ones that actually speak up and tell. So do we really truly know what the true statistics are? Probably not.
Statistics in this type of demographic is so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard because sexual abuse, rapes, trafficking, so much of it goes unreported. And so we really, really don't know, because so many people, you know, especially like adults who have had this happen to them, once you get to an adult, it's like you process even more, like that was my fault or whatever. And I know a lot of people say, well, what do I say to someone if they come in? It's a hard conversation if you're not used to that kind of conversation. So I always tell people this: if someone comes to you and says, I need to talk about something, this is what happened, the first thing said, you don't know what to say, don't say a whole lot. The best thing to say is, how can I support you right now?
Yeah.
What is the best thing that I can do in this moment, and what can I do moving forward? What do you need from me in this moment? Because this took a lot of courage for you to say, and I want to be a trustworthy person for you, and I want to be a safe space. What do you need in this moment? It's simple things like that. Even with your kids, create a safe space. Our kids are not going to talk to us if we don't create a safe space. You cannot flip out on them. You cannot, you can't do it. And I used to always tell my kids, you know, we had some very steadfast rules. So for example, if my kids knew from middle school and up, if you're out and about and you're with somebody who drinks too much or gets high or whatever the case may be, and there's no way home, you are allowed to call me. You need to tell me where you are. I'm coming to get you. No questions asked. You will not get in trouble. I will not ask, because I'd rather you get home alive. Same thing with them. I said, if something happens, we were all kids at one time.
Right.
And I know I did some stupid stuff. And the rule is still that to this day as them adults, you know, you have a safe space in me. Am I going to be happy that you're calling? My daughter did this a couple years ago, and baby, I picked her up, and I had to pull over on 270 because she threw up all over the side. She was so drunk, but she called me.
Yeah.
I didn't ask her no questions. I didn't say, she was an adult, so she ended up telling me everything anyway. But you know, you have to create those safe spaces, and you can create ground rules before the conversation occurs. You can say, okay, I'm going to create a safe space for you. Whatever you tell me, you're not going to get in trouble. And you need to mean that. And you can't give that shock, you know, that you need to control it. Because if they don't feel safe, and it's hard to do it. It's silly, because my daughter was molested. So I've been down this road. When you find out, your reaction is to, you know, but even if your reaction like that is not to harm them, they still may perceive it as, I've done something wrong. I shouldn't have said anything. I told, you know, you gotta keep that calm, and it's hard to do, but create safe spaces for individuals, even if that means turning off your reactions.
That's good.
Very good.
And it's so hard to do, but yeah, that's good, that's good. Okay, I want to change the conversation just a little bit. So I want each one of us to talk about our journey on the other side. Like, we've been through the trauma, now here we are, 2023, April, was this, 28th, you know, what does that healing look like for us? And I'll go last, so let you go ahead, go first.
For me,
Okay, well, let's talk about 50.
So I will be 50 next Saturday.
All right.
And first of all, when we came out, I think we was 30 something. And like I
Yeah.
said, my personality drastically changed. I was so introverted. And now gradually I become more, I say extroverted, but we still on the fence.
Yeah, you're right. Right.
But I have made it a point to push myself out of my box that I have put myself in, because I have lived my life up to 50 being safe. I no longer want to be that constantly safe person. So for me, the other side of survival is having a voice, because I never had one.
Yeah.
And realizing that people actually hear me because I never thought I was heard before. And then going past the limits that I set for myself. Opening up the boundaries and opening up the limits that I set on myself, thinking I can't do some things when I can do all things.
Yes.
So I have to allow myself to be who I am, and then discovering finally who I am, who Tanya is, and then loving who she is, regardless of whether anybody else does or not, and being okay with the fact that some people gonna like it, some people not, some people gonna love it, some people gonna hate it, and guess what? At the end of the day, it don't even matter.
Right, amen, see,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's a really good question, Dee. I'm like, as she was talking, I'm like, where am I, in my healing? So I was.
And you can be very honest. I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
You already know I am.
Yeah.
This is I'm very transparent. So I was raped in college, and then I was raped again at a job when I was 29-ish, around that age. And so I went to therapy, I got EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Basically, it's fancy. Basically follow this light, and you kind of process through all the trauma that you've had. So I did that, and I was like, oh, I'm good. I was a therapist. I'm like, I do this. Like, I know what I'm doing. No, absolutely not. I lived in fear of just not being good enough, fear that I would be alone, fear of abandonment, fear of a lot of different things. Relationships with men suffered a lot. I didn't know who I was when it came to a relationship. I can actually say now I'm in a good, healthy relationship, and I know who I am now. Also through the grace of God, he definitely did a lot of work on me, and broke that chain of anxiety off of me. And still in therapy, because I need a therapist. She's on retainer, like a lawyer, and she's on retainer. And I see her about once a month, and I'm in a really good space. I can actually say at 38, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can actually say I'm actually healed. Healed more than I thought I would. I'm healed more than I thought I would be at this age. And in a healthy relationship, I have a son. Me and his dad are together, and living life. I'm excited to see what 20, 23, 24, 25, and so on looks like. Just because I didn't think I would ever get to this point. I was like, I'm never going to get married, and here we are already talking about moving forward and all the other stuff. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
An interesting space, and I have been for the last, I would say, couple years. So, my healing journey, has been years in the making, and I went to school, and I got all these degrees, and I'm working the best job ever. I'm doing the organization. I'm also a preacher. I have all these hats that I wear, and like I said, I went to my therapist now, maybe less than a year ago, and I'm like, I'm in this weird space, and I just don't feel like I know how to be who I have worked so hard to be. And so we kind of processed that out. And she goes, what do you want to lead with? And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, you're still back here and you've done all this work. She goes, you no longer have to justify why you got here. You don't have to walk in every space and tell your story every time. You don't have to cut yourself open vulnerable. And she said, every decision you made, she said, so when you were in school, you started school, fine. You got your associates, she said, and then you made a decision that had nothing to do with your trauma to go for your bachelor's. She said, you got done with your bachelor's, and then this had nothing to do with your trauma. You decided to go further because that's what you wanted to do. She said, you need to get to a space where you walk into a room and you present yourself as the woman that you have become without trying to explain why you got here. And everybody doesn't have to know your story to know that you are the powerful woman that you are when you walk into a room. She said, start owning the space without taking a long time to explain your story and why I got here and all this stuff happens to me, because you don't have to justify why you got here. She said, even if you hadn't been through the trauma and you were here, you still have a right to be here. And so what I discovered in this was in every season we rediscover our identity. And we think an identity is not evolvable, and it's just like we again kind of that place called there. I am constantly rediscovering my identity in every single stage that I'm in, every single season. I'm rediscovering my identity, and I get to decide who I want to be in this season. Nobody gets to define or dictate or try to put anything through their lens. I get to create that narrative. And so that's kind of where I am with it. And so I'm happy, I'm good.
That's good, that's good. I'm kind of similar to a place like that as well. I think God has given me an assignment, but I think I took that assignment as to like, there's nothing else to me. That's it. And it's like, that's not true. You know, there is so much more to who I am as a person. And I'm actually in a place now, probably the best place I've been in a very long time, you know. Still, like I said, go through the healing journey. I still have a therapist. I need to make an appointment with her coming up. But I still have a therapist. I still see her because that is important, because that is going to be ongoing. Because things in life change, you know. And one thing my therapist told me, there is always room for adjustments. You know, and I live by that. And when I first saw her, she said to me, look in the mirror and tell me who you see. And then I want you to write down who you want to see. And I said, oh, that's really good. So, but that is something that's ever evolving as well. Because even though that's who I saw, who I want to be, it could change. And it's okay to change. So, like, you know what? I think I want to do this a little differently. I think I want to do that a little differently. And that's okay. And that's where I am now. But I do believe, I'm very grateful that God tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, it's time to tell your story, because this would not even be here if God didn't do that. So
drag me along.
she has to come with me every time. But very, very, very grateful for that. So we're going to wrap it up. We only got a few minutes left, but anything you guys want to say to anybody that is watching or that is here that still want to kind of begin that healing journey, but just not quite sure what to do?
It's just push yourself.
Yeah.
You can talk yourself out of it, and you've been talking yourself into a lot of things. Now it's time to talk yourself into your into your new life.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. It's just a process of doing it. It's going to be scary. It's going to be hard. You're going to cry. You're going to scream. And guess what? Do all of that. But in the process of doing all of that, keep walking. Keep moving.
And with that, do it in therapy.
Yeah.
Do it in a safe space
Yeah.
and with safe people, because everybody don't need to know like what's going on in your life, but only those safe people can help you with that.
Yeah.
And for our church people, Jesus in therapy is okay.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, you know, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay there.
That's
right.
Because you deserve
Yeah.
to be okay.
Yeah.
And I just got done telling someone this yesterday. You don't go to therapy and you don't heal for other people.
That's
You
right.
do it for you.
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
And then you watch your world around you
Yes.
evolve and become healthy.
Yes.
But you do it for you.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, ladies, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Yes, Awesome.
For being on the podcast, and thank you for all my audience here.
Yes.
Watching and listening. Coming up in May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I'm pretty excited about it. I have some great things coming up for the podcast, so please stay tuned. And again, you can follow us on Facebook at Be The Voice Podcast, Instagram, and anywhere podcasts are available. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week with another amazing episode. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.